You're about to listen to a podcast from the Firearms Radio Network. For more, visit firearmsradio.net.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to approximately every other week in guns, give or take. I'm your host, Matthew Larosiere, and I'm joined once again by the Ratman. Ratman, what are you up to today?
I'm playing Halo video game with the Halo gun in the video game.
Indeed. That's what that is. But yeah, guys, we're back, and we're going to be doing the year in review, which a lot of you guys like when we do, so we're going to do it. That's going to be at the end of the show, so be sure to stick around for the full year in review. Without further ado, though, let's talk about some recent news. ATF's second permanent director is also not very permanent.
He had a good run.
He had a run, indeed. So yeah, ATF is confirming that Director Dettlbach is to resign on January 18th in a stunning, courageous, and brave mood. And of course, the articles are saying this is normal and customary during a presidential transition. And of course, that's normal and customary because when you are selected and confirmed to head an administrative agency, you are not political and you dispassionately enforce your duties. And that's why during a political change in power, you need to resign, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, when even you can read the writing on the wall, and maybe if we're trying to be charitable, we can say, well, he's just trying to avoid the media circus that will happen once he gets canned.
Right.
But, we're being charitable, right? He's trying to avoid that media circus because he's trying to be dispassionate. But I don't know that I want to be that charitable about it. I think he's doing it so that Trump can't get the victory. So, because I think it's a bigger victory for Trump to can him than it is like, oh, look, Trump's such a bad guy. He's getting rid of this director. Because hopefully, with any luck, at least the tea leaves that I've been able to smell so far, to ingest, to snort, Trump is, it seems, planning to appoint a permanent director, and It's not one of the bad permanent directors like he had tried to do before, where he was a cop that liked gun control. Hopefully, if it's going to be a cop, at least hopefully it's one that's not huge on gun control.
Right.
But,
so this is kind of interesting, though. A quote here from the ATF. As is typical in a transition and consistent with the memorandum sent to all presidential appointees on December 19th, Dettlbach has tendered his resignation to President Biden effective January 18th, 2025. This was from ATF's Chief of Public Affairs to the Reload. Leading the courageous and incredible men and women of ATF has been the greatest honor of his professional life.
Huh.
Okay.
Fun.
Yeah. But its resignation marks the end of just the second period in which the Senate confirmed permanent director led the ATF, puts the leadership back into limbo. Dettlbach didn't offer a potential successor candidate in his resignation letter. Still, he said he hopes Trump can get a permanent director through the process because he believes the agency is better served with consistent leadership. I believe very strongly that the president needs to appoint a permanent director, he told the Times. Republicans control everything at the moment, and their inclination has been to cut. I think having a permanent director gives ATF a stronger voice in everything related to the budget and other things that come up. It's also interesting that this resignation comes right hot on the heels of an attack that happened that involved firearms and explosives.
Yes.
And so, they're showing just how useful and stunning and wonderful and powerful they are.
And brave. Don't forget that.
And stunning and brave, right. Oh, I didn't realize the shirt I was wearing. This shirt is available on MAF. It is. So, but yeah, that's...
It's a little weird. I guess it was expected that he'd be getting replaced at some rate. Him stepping down, I think, is a little bitch made, but whatever. I hope he had fun.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if we're to do, since this is sort of a summary episode of sorts, looking back at his track record, one of the things that he made a priority was getting e-forms done quickly. Like you do have him to thank for that. He appointed a guy who was like, his job was, make e-forms go fast. And they did that. And yeah, whatever, $200, it's still an infringement, but like it's become a lot less painful than it was with the whole having to wait a year or two. So, that's good. And that's the one positive thing I think we can point to he did. There was a litany of not good things that he did. And of course, I'm going to point to his like supposed crackdown on machine gun conversion devices as not being a good thing, because who's the people he went after? It certainly didn't stop it. Even they did post their most recent like recovery and finding numbers, right? Interestingly, Florida is the state that has the most total machine gun conversion devices show up, and many states still having them show up. They're only.
I wonder how many of those are just the stupid auto key card that they, are presently fighting the appeal on,
right?
But there's a good quote here from Alan Gottlieb, who says the next ATF director should know how to disassemble a pistol instead of trying to regulate it out of existence. He should lobby Congress for funds to revive restoration of rights procedures and stop harassment of lawful small business firearms retailers. He should be someone willing to visit a gun show rather than shut it down. Which, I mean, it's an important point that people aren't talking about enough. A massive constitutional defect in the current scheme is the lack of restoration of rights procedures currently in play, where if you are convicted of something federal, you are basically SOL. And I'm glad to see that a lot of Republicans have actually stepped up and acknowledged this as a major hole. And we're especially hopeful that something will be done to fix this, especially considering the soon-to-be president is a prohibited person. So he should have an interest in seeing an avenue to have that fixed, especially where his convictions are, as with many people, something completely nonviolent and frankly a bit silly.
Yes.
Yep. So yeah, that's that. In other, I'll just tell you guys, be sure your blood pressure isn't too high for this one.
Take your medication if you have it.
Yeah, if you've eaten a bunch of salt recently, you might want to turn the set down. But special report: the terror of a wrongful ATF raid. We have here an image of Choppa Manley, who, of course, in the dead of the night, in 20-degree weather in Baltimore, his wife shouts to him that there's people all in the yard, and then there's dozens of ATF agents.
Like it's not like it's not like a little small thing. Like they're showing up with the trucks and everything.
Yep,
like
dozens.
Like they're showing up with the trucks like they're going after like I don't know, El Chapo or something.
Yep, instead of Choppa. Right?
Maybe they got confused.
Yeah, but so there's dozens of agents doing little tactical moves, is what he said. He observed them like doing their little, like going around in their little ring around the rosy.
1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. And so he goes out with his hands up, right? And of course, the natural response that, for professional law enforcement in that situation is to de-escalate, right? And communicate with the person who's coming out with their hands up, who's the subject of their warrant.
Yeah, flashbang them.
Yeah, and so that's why they immediately trained guns on his juvenile daughters, pulled them out of the house, and then went to the basement where his 15-year-old son was sleeping and flashbanged the shit out of him. That's all normal law enforcement things.
The normal law enforcement defenders, right, will see something like this and go, well, what did this guy do? He's melanated. What did he do wrong? There has to be something. Not a single thing. Not a single thing.
So the warrant alleged that that he was a felon in possession of a firearm. And when you are the federal government, that is a very easy thing to check. Manley had no prohibiting factors. He was perfectly in lawful possession of all his firearms, both under federal and Maryland law, for God's sakes. So they raid his home with a full tactical team, flashbang his family, have dogs go in and ransack the house. Dogs shit everywhere, which is a very professional law enforcement thing to do.
Including in his daughter's bed. Like,
yeah.
What? Uh,
Because when you're a professional, uniformed officer, it's customary for your dog to go and squat on a child's bed. That's normal. It's they flashbanged him. It was horrible. And then they're going through. Go on.
At one point they want to get into his gun safe, and so he's being held in handcuffs. They handcuff one of his daughters, who he asks, like, they're a minor, you probably shouldn't be doing that,
right?
But eventually they're like, well, they need to get into his gun safe, and they were threatening like to blow it open or whatever. And he was like, well, just unhandcuff me and then I'll do it. And whenever they're unhandcuffing him, they're like, well, don't you try and run away. Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Well, what the fuck is wrong with these cretins? And so he goes and unlocks it, and they go through every gun he has and then verbally acknowledge that there's nothing here, nothing bad here, right? Go through every gun the guy owns. And he's got social media. He makes YouTube videos. He's got an Instagram. He's always preaching, like, doing guns responsibly, right? He talks about his life story. It's a sympathetic one, right? That's he grew up in poor circumstances, managed to make his way out of a bad neighborhood into a good neighborhood, bought a lot of guns because he feels it's important to defend himself. I mean, go figure, right? He moved himself out of a situation where he was the most likely victim of the sort of crime that you'd want to own a gun for, right? Most home invasions don't take place in the nice places; they take place in the bad places. It's tough,
right?
So he gets himself out of that. Professes people owning guns the right way, right? To get them registered if your state requires that, to get your licenses, to get your permits, right? Because the police often target melanated people for these sorts of things. And sure enough, him, who's followed every rule and encourages people to follow the rules, gets raided with the most like bogus felon in possession. Shouldn't you know that in advance? And it becomes one of those weird, like, there must have been a hilarious series of inexcusable miscommunications that happened somewhere along the line. He has talked with several Second Amendment advocacy groups and is entertaining getting a lawyer. And frankly, I think he should get one, and he should.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing I thought was interesting, that after the raid is done, right? So let's go to where they go to the safe, right? And so he recounts, he unlocks the gun safe and slowly swings open the door. And this is in Manley's words. They were all standing around waiting and hoping. This was their moment, they thought. They started pulling out rifles and shotguns, but everything was registered and Maryland compliant. We got nothing here, one of them said. And then later on, after everything's calmed down, one of the agents asked him, well, why would someone make stuff up about you? Like it's zero locus of personal responsibility or control,
right? Like whose fault is it? The agents are like,
who did this?
Someone else did this, not us. Someone else's dog shitted on the bed.
Yeah. And then afterwards, one ATF agent who told his wife that he was the lead investigator asked her via text for dimensions about the doors and windows his team had destroyed, which he promised to replace, and she left him on red. Which is
like of all the nerve, and probably the reason they have the nerve that they do is because they realize they're probably getting sued, and it's probably not going to be pleasant to be them for a while. But the fact that you're texting them like, hey, can you do more work to fix the thing we fucked up? Thanks.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable.
Yeah.
You should be
so gone.
Like they ought to be sending out of their own pension the most white glove.
Yeah.
Fix every window and door on your house company and fix their roof while you're at it just because you're sorry about it.
Right.
It's just unbelievable.
But no, it's hey, do this, like, go dimension the shit we broke.
Yeah, I'll get it. Go do more work to fix the thing that we fucked up.
Yeah. That really just tells you the state of mind of these people. They really don't see, they just don't see it, right? They're like, oh, it's just, it's part of the job. It just happens. It's in talking with these Second Amendment groups, Manley has talked about the fact that they potentially one of the reasons somebody would make stuff up about him is because he made it out of bad circumstances. Maybe people are jealous about him, and maybe the miscommunication that happened was like somebody rolled or whatever, and when you had to narc on somebody to get a lesser sentence, and he's like, well, this guy, he's got a lot of guns. I bet he, back in the day,
maybe he smokes weed or something, right? Just make up some complete bullshit. And then the ATF's like, okay, fine, we're going to make up a story. We're going to raid his house and see what we find, which, you know, in this country is not how that's supposed to go. But
it is just shocking when you look at a lot of cases, the percentage of which the only basis of the attack is the word of someone else they bagged.
yes.
And they're saying, we'll go easy on you if you roll on somebody.
Right. Like your freedom is dependent on you giving us some bullshit.
Yes. I cannot comprehend how no court to date, because this has been the procedure for a while, how that can possibly be sufficient to sustain a warrant, right? To promote the grant of a warrant. That does not make sense. It is like more often than not, the original information is not reliable. And then they go, what it is a fishing expedition. They go to find something.
Yes.
And this is one of the cases where they couldn't find anything. I think that's a huge piece of reform that we're dearly overdue for in this country, is that a coerced statement should not be enough to start a new criminal investigation.
Yes.
It simply needs to be forbidden. But yeah, that's just nightmarish and awful in every way. And so we need to refresh our minds with something that is the opposite of that. And that is vzgrips.com. Guys, VZ Grips is a longtime supporter of the show. They have the best grips available, guaranteed by the Grip Coalition force. All right, guys. And the VZ Patriot program also agrees. You need to go to vzgrips.com, check out their selection, send them an email demanding Draco grips. But when you do purchase for your new carry pisser, you got to make sure to use promotional code THISWEEK15. That's THISWEEK 15 to let them know that you support their support of the show, and also you get discount. Okay.
Yep. And Draco grips. Tell them to make the Draco grips.
They tell them to make the Draco grip. Interesting deja vu moment in history today. The German government has begun disarming members of a certain right-wing political party. Yeah, so AfD members in many German states are stripped of many of their rights, including the right to privacy and lawful gun ownership. That is interesting. Authorities in Germany have begun withdrawing gun ownership licenses from Alternative for Germany members who are deemed a danger to public safety. So five AfD members have received a notice that their gun license would be revoked, while another member voluntarily returned his license after a revocation procedure was initiated. Another 51 cases are currently being examined by authorities.
It's a little bit of a mess, I guess. But my understanding, right? I literally don't care and don't want to care about German politics, especially in this level of detail. But my understanding is that AfD is a right libertarian sort of political party, but it's far from fringe. I think they've got like one in five. I saw like 10 to 20% of the popular vote typically belongs to them. So it's far from like some like these guys are crazy, right? They style themselves as, well, when you think right wing in German, you think Nazis, but actually the Nazis were left wing. sort of doing they had policies that were left wing and policies that were right wing. Right. They also had frightening policies that I don't think are really either right wing. They're just not
that are not winged.
They're in fact scaly and have horns. But they style themselves this way. But my I guess sort of the important lesson here is that countries that have registration regulatory schemes, just the fact that you're affiliated with a political party, and it's not like a fringe weird political party, like it's not like you're with the American Nazi Party or whatever, right?
Right.
Like I guess here in America,
apparently the chief objection by the establishment in Germany is the staunch anti-immigration stance of AfD. Whatever.
Using people's then registration to like come and confiscate their stuff is mind-boggling, and it is the thing that is warned about, right? That
I can tell you one thing that makes me definitely think that the government has my interest, and that's in mind, and that's when they say anyone who disagrees with us, we are going to take actions against them because they disagree with us. That guarantees to me that their heads are in the right place.
They're looking out for you.
Yeah. Because some people have bad ideas. But I don't want to spend too much time dwelling on that because it's Germany politics.
But the lesson is right. Anyway, the registration usually ends up not great. you give the government a tool. The government doesn't use its tools to restrain itself all the time. Anyway, it eventually uses those tools as a blunt instrument to cave your head in.
Yeah, you hand the government a tool, and then you are shocked when the government employs the tool.
Oh no! Who could have seen this?
Why are you using that toy I bought you? You were supposed to put it away. But anyway, let's move on now to the weapon of mass destruction charges faced by 10 cell phones. The Charlotte rapper charged with possession of weapons of mass destruction. He's out on bond. His bond was previously set at $1 million. It was reduced to $200,000. And for those of you who don't know, usually the way your bond works is you have to put up 10 to 15% of that amount in order to have the bondsman cover the rest. And that is not refunded. So effectively, when they put the $1 million bond, they were saying come up with $200,000 and you do not get that back. So the $1 million would be 100,000, 250,000. You get what I'm saying, but it's not great. So what is this weapon of mass destruction? Flammenwerfer.
Yes.
Right. So apparently this guy was doing flamethrower tricks, right?
He was doing stupid stuff with a flamethrower, but
yeah,
the $1 million bond for being an idiot with a flamethrower. I don't get it.
Right.
It's like a bad joke where the punchline is just like, there isn't a punchline. It's serious. Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. So according to North Carolina law, a weapon of mass destruction is actually pretty broad, and it includes any explosive or incendiary, any type of weapon other than a shotgun, which will or which may be readily converted to expel a projectile, and which has a barrel or a bore of more than 1/2 inch in diameter. So weapon of mass destruction is destructive device. Okay. Any firearm capable of fully automatic fire, any shotgun with a barrel of less than 18 inches or an overall length of less than 26 inches. Jesus. And it's basically, it copies a lot from the federal NFA definitions, including the exceptions, signaling devices, et cetera, and those items that are registered. So
it's not a weapon of mass destruction if it's registered. It's just a regular weapon at this point.
So he was doing the silly videos with the flamethrower, but the charging documents indicate that the weapons of mass destruction were the Glock switch device, a fuel filter, surpriser, and a cylindrical device that they also allege was a surpriser. Which is interesting because a lot of people thought it would have been the flamethrower because of the silly videos. But it looks like it was everything else. I'm guessing because it was one of those stupid, brush burning flamethrowers.
I think it was the pulse fire one, but the videos for people who haven't seen them, he was like walking around in front of cars in traffic and setting the ground on fire in front of people's cars.
Being a silly Billy.
Which necessarily annoyed some people as to why he was doing this. But it seems that he also had a Glock that could do jumping jacks, and they took great offense to this.
They didn't like that. They didn't like the mass destruction poisable by such an arm. So yeah,
the Glock that's been enchanted with mass destruction.
Yeah, but he's out. He posted. So Good for him. That's great. I do think, and it's one of those things that's hard because I do think it was a little bit silly to be flamethrowing on people's cars. I don't think you should do that. And in fact, I think there should be consequences if you do that, because that sounds in a lot of common law crime. But I don't see on principle, I don't see a problem with the cylindrical device of the fuel filter or the jumping jack Glock. So, if you feel the need to say that on principle. Speaking of great principles, if you are a man of great principles, you must already shop at MAF Corporation, guys. MAF Corporation, the greatest source of all of the metallic objects. MAF-arms.com, and be sure to use promotional code FUDBusters if you would like, me to be the one who is known as the person who sent you, or if you would like Ivan to be the one who sent you. What is the code?
The code's Ratman, I do believe.
Ratman. Be sure to check it out if you haven't checked it out yet. There's a lot of stuff that has been added as part of the Yuletide yard sale, guys. MAF-arms.com. Check it out. This next one's a story. Washington is a state.
Unfortunately.
And they are among the states in the union. And also, they write some of the more stupid gun laws for us to learn about. In case you were, a lot of us wonder what it is possible for a human being or lizard creature to jam onto a piece of paper. And I'm glad that the state of Washington will oblige us to see. And here's one such example. An act relating to enhancing public safety by limiting bulk purchases and transfers of firearms and ammunition. Basically, makes it a crime to purchase more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition. Well, a civil infraction in a month.
Yeah, 1,000 rounds a month is, for reference, nothing.
Yep.
For a lot of people,
delivery,
nothing.
Especially if you shoot 22, mind. Let's see if they exempt 22. Dealer may not deliver more than 100 rounds of 50 caliber ammunition or more than 1,000 rounds of any other caliber of ammunition to a purchaser or transferee within any 30-day period. So yeah, you cannot have, unless of course you're a cop, in which case you need to shoot as much as possible, right?
Right.
Yeah. Or a FFL.
I would like
specifically
to
for resale, so wouldn't cover CNRs.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The specific thing that's worrisome more for me here is that FOPA, which was sort of the gun law that, as a trade-off, we sort of traded off a series of protections as gun owners for the Hughes Amendment was tried to put in there to stop FOPA from passing, but they passed it anyway because they were like, well, we can get that out later, and then they didn't get that out later. Oops. But the sort of one of the big trade-offs there was being able to ship ammunition interstate. Previously, you couldn't do that. Before FOPA, that was not something you could do. In these moves and other moves we've talked about, especially with California, have tried to undermine FOPA as much as they can, where the states are just like sort of an open, flagrant disobedience of at least the intention of FOPA, which was you can just buy ammo from another state. That's fine. Shouldn't be a problem. Where now these states are saying, well, you vendor in another state have to monitor who's buying ammo. And then you vendors in state definitely have to monitor who's buying ammo and in what amounts. It's just
it does exempt CNR holders.
Okay.
Yep.
Just sort of a silly way to try and burden people's rights. Especially whenever you figure like, okay, let's say that you are hell bent on doing a notable Las Vegas, right? You are the ultimate bad guy.
The supreme gentilhomme.
You would need to like stock up for like two months to be paddock,
or Mira. Who does this cover? A dealer may not deliver more than this many rounds.
Oh, a dealer. So yeah, just go to two different dealers. Right. And I guess here's another angle, right? Now understanding that fully. what this is meant to do is similar to the things that Illinois has tried to do. Is it's just trying to to make the burden of being a dealer too hard. Because now what you have to do is like keep a record of people's driver's license and how much ammo you've sold to them. It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's nonsense.
And also, we all know that 50 caliber ammunition is what people are really hosing. Like that's what you need, a lot of that stuff.
That's an interesting one, and that's been one that I've been doing a little bit of research on just for fun, but like in this, it sort of picked up in the 70s. It had steam in the 80s and 90s. Anti-gunners were terrified of you being able to buy a 50 cal. Like before assault weapons were the things everybody complained about. Everybody was complaining about 50 caliber anti-material stuff,
right?
Because the big issue there was you could shoot down helicopters.
Yeah,
now,
and wasn't it that like Barrett or someone had indicated that you possibly could?
Barrett designed a bullpup-ish version thing of the M82 that was like, well, special forces can use this to shoot down helicopters, and that was sort of pointed to as the, well, look, guys, even the people making these things say that. But of course, Barrett didn't really sell these to civilians, and they only made like a handful of examples, and the military was like, no, you can't shoot down helicopters with that. No, like as a theoretical.
I mean, sure, if the helicopter is in a position to be shot at,
if it holds still enough, sure.
Yeah. And we have run out of M2s.
Right.
Yeah.
Things that like maybe have a chance of hitting it.
Right.
But then they have freaked out about them since. The freak outery was shooting down helicopters, but also 50 calibers or sniper rifles.
Yeah. You can shoot a Gorial away.
Yeah, it largely went away, but especially around the time of the DC sniper, despite the fact that he like didn't use a 50 cal, they pointed to that as like but what if he did? Like, well, with a 50 cal, he could shoot something like 2.5 miles away. And it's like, again, it's a theoretical study. Yes, a 50 caliber projectile will go 2.5 miles. You can point to 0 instances of someone using this to do a big bad Las Vegas because that's insane. The same way that like pointing to people shoot like they made up a story in Waco about helicopters being shot at by 50 cals. It never happened. There was never any evidence of this, but the anti-gunners pointed to it constantly.
Right.
Especially after Waco, right? They pointed to it constantly. Like, well, these cultists use 50 cals to shoot down helicopters. Didn't happen. Literally never happened.
Yeah, and you can only like repeat, no, they didn't, so many times, right, before you get washed out.
Right, and the court documents after the Waco investigation pointed to like there was like at least one instance where a helicopter went and landed because they thought they were being shot at, and that's it. Right. There was also no bullet holes in the helicopter or anything. They were probably just like, I'm bored.
Yeah, with an acorn.
Guy got
you had to land and start rolling and shooting.
More likely than doing it with a 50 cal anyways. Just acorning
them. Jeez. But yeah, that's stupid. And I think that this is silly enough that even Washington State won't pass it. So let's see and hope. Next up, guys, another important thing. If you've ever gone to a gun store and liked them, if you've ever been a gun store, if you've ever been involved in the industry, you need to go to fflpaymentprocessing.com, guys. There is a new offer. Check it out. MXPOS free hardware program. This is amazing, guys. Look at the size of that thing, and you could get it for free. And you're going to get great rates. You should not be paying high-risk rates on your business. You are in a highly regulated industry that is one of the safest of all time. So why go with the other guys that just say, oh, we're gun friendly, right? And then charge you a lot of money, or with your local guy who says nothing. And then as soon as their partner bank finds out what you're doing, knock you off, right? Just completely kill your ability to take cards. You won't have that with FFL Payment Processing. Look what's in the name. Give them a call, guys. Tell them I sent you. That's important. You get special treatment or something. But yeah, guys, fflpaymentprocessing.com. This next thing is something. Federal is really good at making really cool cartridges and then not having anyone make a gun for it, right? Like they'll get people to chamber guns in their cartridges, but it'll be a stupid gun not made for the cartridge. Sometimes they make a cartridge that's just stupid, right? So this is the new 7mm backcountry Federal's Wonder cartridge. It's a like super fast 7mm, like large intermediate sized cartridge, and I do not get it.
Is it? I thought it was stainless case or something, or just reinforced case head, so it's doing sort of the same thing as the Sig Furry.
Yeah. So yeah, pressure up to 80K, which is aggressive. Muscle velocity up to 3,300 feet a second with 155 grain projectile. I mean, that's a lot, right? It's spicy. Standard 7mm projectile, so you can do all the loading for it.
Yeah, for all of the standard 7mm projectiles that are plentiful and bountiful.
Shut up. But yeah, this guy says that it blows the other very popular cartridge that we all know of because we have one in all of our gun safes, the 7mm PRC, out of the water. With the same 170 grain bullet and loaded by the same factory, 7mm backcountry is getting 200 more FIPS and 460 additional foot lobes of energy. And then, so there was the pros and then the cons. There's just like, he goes on. But yeah, there is a neat, so it looks like a 2-part case. Of course, I didn't really look much into this because
he says that it does need a special case in the article. So
yeah, and it looks like one of those 2 parts, but both sides of it. I mean, I think it would be odd for the whole case to be stainless, right?
You could do it.
Yeah, steel cased, high pressured 7mm long action rifle cartridge. Steel case is a special boron alloy. It doesn't need painted, but it is plated. Pressure is 80,000, but can go higher. No primer dropout or pocket enlarging. Bolt thrust is less that a similar brass case because the case wall is not elongating like brass. Case head diameter is 30-06. Wow, they really are just... The round actually looks a little like a 7mm 06. Our King Hunter gun is a midweight gun, and in my estimation, recoil is less than a 308 in a light gun. I have shot other cartridges with the steel case high pressure technology. This is here to stay. It's like, yeah, no, it kicks about as much as a smaller caliber gun that is not as heavy.
This was Bill Geisley. This is Bill Geisley who wrote this.
Bill Geisley. Oh, brilliant.
I'd like to imagine that typo was original to his authorship.
Oh, it has to have been.
Didn't come into
Bolt thrust is good. Less that a similar. Looks a little like a 7mm. God. In my estimation, yeah, with our King Hunter, truck suspension squatter gun, recoils less than a lighter gun in a smaller caliber. Brilliant. Thank you, Mr. Geisley. Very cool. But yeah, so I like it. Unknown reloadability. Yeah, not likely to be adopted. Very high pressure, more recoil, rare and more expensive.
That's going to be the interesting thing is, one obturation, because that's the problem. It's a problem of steel case. If this is stainless that's plated, or if it's just actual, like good old.
No, it doesn't. They would have said stainless because that's a marketing word. So they said it, and it's coated, and stainless doesn't like being coated. So right. I'm reckoning this is some kind of boron steel alloy with probably nickel coating. Just the way it looks there.
I'm curious how that reloadability is going to go. I mean, you can reload steel case. It sticks to every single. Normally, your sizing die sticks just a little bit to brass. You need to do a little bit of lube. Steel case sticks to every die. Every die that you run it through, it sticks to.
Yeah, it is desperate to. Like when you run steel case into a die, it's like, I wonder how good your shell holder is.
It just wants to rip everything apart.
Yeah, it's desperate, but
who knows? Maybe they made this out of Of course, the cool thing to do would be make it out of a steel that's got a very low heat transfer coefficient, right? That doesn't conduct heat very well. So you can harden the case head the web of the case where it needs the strength, but then the front end where the sizing happens, it needs to be like soft like brass, ideally. There's no way they did that. I guarantee it's just not easy to reload, and this is going to be dead in 5 years, but that's all right.
Yeah. Finally, Federal is saying these steel cases can be reloaded, but I'm suspicious. Well, I mean, this is the thing is this type of trickery, right, can work for the, Grand Boomer hunter that doesn't reload, right? And I don't mean Grand Boomer as an older, because older boomers reload, but I mean like the new Harley riding boomer that wants the slickest and fastest, but has no skills or ability or knowledge. So this could be for that, right? And of course, Federal saying that it can be reloaded, that's a little different than from them being like, oh yeah, no, this is, you can get 15 loadings out of a cartridge, no problem. Right. Versus them being like,
it can be.
The other thing is the way steel flows, right? Because there's just no way on a mass production scale to get all of the chambers, just right to where you'd have very minimal case expansion. And steel does not want to keep going back and forth, right?
Yeah.
Even brass, you have to anneal after a few loadings. I don't know if like this can be reloaded thing is you have to anneal it before you size it and after, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the thing. I don't know, but I guarantee you will find out, because if there's one thing reloaders can do, it's post on forums about what they broke.
Yep.
So I'm kind of excited to see about that. I am very frustrated that they're doing this instead of actually trying to get somebody to make a gun for 30 super carry. Why aren't they like 30 super carry should be triple stacked or quad stacked? It's what should be done. It would fit in like the footprint of a 9mm double stack gun, and you get a ton of rounds. It's brilliant. Why aren't you doing it? Like, do you hate success? Actually, I could believe it. Look at this shit. But anyway, all right, guys, right after this, we're going to do our year in review. Don't go anywhere, but I have to tell you something very important, guys. Our longest time supporter is Patriot Patch Company. That's patriotpatch.co. They have custom designed patches, apparel, and accessories for any freedom-loving individual. I'm waiting on the next month's one, so let's see what it is. Whoa! Cold-blooded, my man. Look at that. It's a Yeti dude with the Gatot horn, and he's got a micro gun with approximately a tenth of a second worth of ammunition. And if you are our friends at NAGR, you'll say that is $1,000 if it's blue dag training ammo. But
if it was my minigun, it'd be $1,000 worth of ammo. Sure, you got $1,000.
But yeah, guys, that is a January exclusive. Be sure to go and check them out. They're longest term supporter of the show. And if you do go, oh, you added something to the thing.
Okay, I added 2 stories.
I haven't screwed the whole thing up. So you guys are going to have a bunch of extra stories here at the end. But yeah, guys, promotional code TWIG10, that's TWIG10, to get a discount and to let them know we're showing you that they love us. All right. So this man actually went and snuck stories into the script. They are important, though. They are important. I was just trying to keep it light because I actually have a hearing first thing in the morning on a case that suddenly became a murder case. So it is going to be interesting for me, but I'm not involved. Just no. I always feel like I have to say that because sometimes we talk about my cases where I'm the plaintiff, and other times we talk about my cases where I'm not the plaintiff or the but yeah, so it's going to be fun. Anyway, this is the story that Ivan just added in. Colorado has introduced a new assault weapon ban. Why don't you take it away, Ivan?
So the way that they're doing this, right? California, Colorado Part 2, California Part 2, Colorado, as they call it.
Yeah.
They've tried, I think, 3 times now recently. This is their 3rd attempt to do an assault weapons ban. The sort of novel thing going on here is that the past 2 ones were feature tests, right? Whereas if it has a detachable magazine and a grip or a barrel or blah, 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 no can't have. But the thing that they've done here is not done a feature test at all. It's if it's semi-automatic and it takes a magazine, you can't have it. So this is rifles, pistols, and shotguns, as well as shotguns. They break down differently because they've got different sorts of magazines. But it's extremely aggressive. It's more aggressive even than California's assault weapons ban. And I just thought that every town's write-up for it here was absolutely fantastic, because they talk about their justification for why all semi-automatics need to be banned is because Colorado shares state borders with states that don't ban high-capacity magazines. Yeah, you heard that right. Because other states don't ban high-capacity magazines, they need to ban all semi-automatics. Despite the fact that the neighboring states don't ban semi-automatics. So if magazines coming illegally into the state was a problem, wouldn't the guns? Anyway, not gonna worry about that. But then it's also funny because every town in Giffords and them all went on their usual diatribe of, this is why we need strong federal laws. This is why we need a strong federal law to come in and say, no, you can't have this stuff because of the state borders and the state and you crossing state lines. Boo hoo hoo. Our mean and nasty laws don't get to work everywhere. But these are the same organizations that just recently we talked about the case, and I think it was Pennsylvania Supreme Court, where they struck down, upheld preemption. Rather, they upheld preemption, struck down a challenge to preemption, which Giffords was upset about, because actually what you really need is to get rid of preemption, because localities need to be able to pass really strong laws, and they don't need to be told by the guy up top. So they, in classic fashion, right, they want their cake and they would like to eat it too.
It's brilliant. Hold on. They had a nice little function where you could immediately tweet something from the article. So let me go to my account. I made a little tweet. It should be a good one. I like Listen, I like that quote. There is no reason a person would own these kinds of weapons and devices if their intent wasn't to kill as many people as possible.
I think this guy sought this one all the way through. And of course, these kinds of weapons, it exempts 22s. It's the only exemption. But otherwise, for rifles and pistols, it's anything semi-auto that can take a detachable magazine. So that's a lot of guns. So I guess you'd have to go and parse through the exact language to see if a Garand, right? Because the Garand and the SKS are the usual ones that you use as a high watermark for assault weapons bans, because usually they don't go there. But SKS can take a detachable magazine without modification to the gun. They make those awful shitters that don't work, but I think
no. You do have to modify. Well, it's interesting because without modification, an SKS won't take a detachable mag with the bolt closed. So that's an interesting question, right? But it all depends on how you want to read the law. And the Garand can take a detachable mag if you're Italian,
right?
Yeah, and you have funny spinny cutters. So and heck, if you're Italian and have funny spinny cutters, you can make a lot of things take detachable mags. They love doing that. They're like, we have these. Ow, ow, ow. We have these single shot guns that we bought specifically from the Swiss, saying we don't want a magazine. And then 10 years later, we're like, oops. Ow, 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 ow.
Now they have magazones.
Yeah, they got our magazone. Military style firearms that accept detachable magazines. So,
and their definition of military style is semi-automatic, which is funny for a litany of reasons.
Yeah, no, because military ain't never used none of them jerk off for guns.
Yeah, they'd never do that. But it's just sort of silly there. But they interestingly, they adopt the language in this bill from the Go Safe Act, which we talked about before. It was we're going to ban all gas operated firearms, and they define gas operated as semi-automatic, which is brilliant. Hilarious. But in this, they do more or less the same thing, where they say, well, what does a semi-automatic firearm mean? It means it's got a piston. The piston's on the inside, piston's the outside, piston's long, piston's short. It means the case has the pistons to blowing back. It's like, okay, so it's every semi-automatic is your definition of semi-automatic.
Yeah, I remember going through that. That was fun. And we started arguing about what gas operation is. Yes, the scientific gases do cause things to occur. All right, next. God, linked Duke.
Yeah.
Duke Center for Firearms Law. Totally straight laced, totally listen, no bias. This is coming from the Duke Center for Firearms. You believe in them, right?
The puke,
the Gun Watch.
the Puke Center for Firearms Law.
Anyway, take us away on this one.
So I just cited to this one because they do keep a very comprehensive list of the cases that the Supreme Court's looking at that are gun related. It's more. There's a couple of like pro-gun side things that don't keep as comprehensive a list. I wanted to tally this up because the Supreme Court is going to distribute for a conference. It's now today, right on Friday. So by the time you guys are seeing this, they will have conferred about these 7 felon in possession challenges to the Second Amendment. Some of them facial, some of them as applied. Felon in possession challenges. MSI versus Moore. Maryland shall issue is going to show up multiple times in this, doing incredible work. That's Maryland's handgun qualification / purchase permit, which we've talked about before. That's you have to like qualify and get a permit to get a handgun there, and that's probably too many steps. And they're asking the Supreme Court to say that is too many steps. Gray versus Jennings, which is a very, very it's one of these like muted, right? The importance of this isn't immediately obvious. But what Gray versus Jennings is asking is, does a Second Amendment violation count as irreparable harm for the purposes of a preliminary injunction? The answer is unequivocally yes. But the lower courts like to act like they're confused about this. Like, does a violation of your rights count as irreparable harm? I don't know.
Yeah,
well, of course,
it's funny because it's entirely where you are. Like in my pistol brace case, there wasn't even like a minute was spent at oral argument talking about that, and they just moved on.
Yep.
Like that's obvious. Moving on. Oh, but wait, no, it's not, because they could do it the other way. And it's like, yeah, that worked in all your other cases, didn't it? Anyway, moving on.
And so
NYPD headquarters license division. Concealed carry denial.
Yep.
It's because New York cannot learn. It is impossible.
Yep. So there's that one. There's Ocean State Tactical versus Rhode Island, which is Rhode Island's Megazone ban.
Yep.
And then the big one, right? The big one that everybody's waiting with bated breath for is Snope v. Brown. This is Maryland's assault weapons ban. It's been to the Supreme Court. Counting in like that sort of interlocutory things, like 8 times, 7 times. The Supreme Court has seen this case like a bajillion times at this point. This case is done. You've done its Bruin analysis poorly, might I add. It has an en banc final decision after waiting a year. Like the panel, this is the one the panel just sat around on for a year because the oral arguments went well for our side, and they were like, "Well, we can't fucking write this shit." And so then the en banc court snatched it away, which is not unprecedented, but very uncommon and sort of telling. They had a fucking circus of oral arguments en banc, and then issued an opinion that's like the Second Amendment doesn't actually exist. If the gun is like potentially maybe useful for a military slightly, because that's what Bruin says is the history analog is that civilians have never been allowed to own military-ish weapons. Yeah, no. So what Bruin said, when Bruin said we're not actually overturning Miller, what they actually meant was it's completely abrogated. Yeah, like Miller identifies the history and tradition of doing this, but whatever.
Yeah, that's not real. There's a lot of cases up, and I think there's no way we're not getting a hardware ban case.
They're conferencing a shit ton of gun related cases all on the same day. Hopefully that's a sign that this was on purpose and it's not just the way that shook out on accident. I think Snope not just needs to. Well, I think Snope should be taken up. I think it will be taken up. I think it'll be heard in the summer. That's my thinkings because they.
So let's see all the ones that are the January 10th conference, which is of course the big one. So we've got Gonzalez v. U.S. Second Amendment Commerce Clause challenge to 922 G1, which is the felon in possession rule, which is responsible for the majority of I'm not sure if the absolute majority, but a shocking amount of felony convictions.
Yep.
Simple possession. Pierce v. U.S. Second Amendment challenge to 922 G1. Okay. Holmes v. U.S. Second Amendment Commerce Clause challenge to 922 G1. So 2 of those are Fifth Circuit. 1 is 3 Fifth Circuit.
And then 1 11th.
Yep, Townsville v. U.S. from 11th Circuit, which did a bad job at that case, might I add. It was very poorly reasoned. In fact, they were just like, well, yeah, Civil War. Right, let's
that
go.
one above is also being conferenced tomorrow. I think that one might be.
That's Townsville that we were. Are you talking about B&L?
B&L, I think they may have as well, because there's some of these things that Duke hasn't updated yet because it happened like recently. They rescheduled some of these for the 10th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's First and Second Amendment and Equal Protection challenge to California ban on contracting for the sale of guns or ammunition in gun show locations. The equal protection, that is because they were fishing for Thomas's vote.
Yep.
So yeah, Garcia v. U.S. On Second Circuit, whether the imposition of a ban on gun possession as a standard term of supervised release violates the Second Amendment. That's very interesting because it will happen in any case.
Yep.
Any case. Smith v. U.S. facial and as-applied challenge to 922 G1, felon in possession. Young v. U.S. 922 G1, also 11th Circuit. Let's see what else. Another 11th Circuit, Dubois v. U.S. 922 G1, nonviolent specifically. MSI v. Moore, again, very important. It's very important that you guys support Maryland Shall Issue. I do work for Maryland Shall Issue, and Maryland Shall Issue is run entirely by volunteers. So your donations actually go and support gun rights directly. And that is, Maryland's handgun qualification license requirement, which is messed up and expensive. Curry v. U.S. from the 10th Circuit, 922 G1, felon in possession prohibition. Gray v. Jennings is what you just talked about. Whether infringement of the Second Amendment constitutes per se irreparable injury sufficient to support a preliminary injunction in the context of Delaware's ban on certain semi-automatic rifles and large capacity magazines. Ward v. NYPD, denial of a concealed carry license. Purdy v. U.S., 922 G1, out of the Fifth Circuit again. Those are the ones that are live and up. So there's no way it's not intentional that all those 922 G1 cases are up. They're gonna go there and select their favorite. Or they can consolidate cases that raise
the same question or substantially similar questions.
Yeah, and that is a good. So the thing is, the Supreme Court has always been hesitant to put precedential decisions on cases with bad facts, right? Where this is a bad guy, right? Or what? Remember, we talked about this a lot with Rahimi. There's 2 ways you can get around that. 1, you can cherry pick a case for its facts. 2, you can put a bunch of cases together to the point where the facts are completely washed out in the water, and you can only really talk in terms of principle. And then the end result is they all get sent back to their circuits for a decision consistent with the ruling. I think that might be a safer way to do that, especially with the sheer quantity of 922 G1 cases. That's going to be my prediction, that they're going to take a bunch of these together and look at them. All right, guys. Well, last up, finally, as promised, let's go over what happened in the year of our Lord, 2000 So, and this is thanks to Clearly Insane 1, a Redditor. Thanks for doing all this work. We're going to, use it as a springboard. We do appreciate you. He does this every year, and it's really cool that he does it. So, all right, first bullet point. Canada expanded its list of prohibited firearms, adding 324 models. It spent $67 million as of October and has bought back exactly 0 firearms since announcing the confiscation plan in 2020. Washington had a major outage in their background check system, and this held up firearm transfers for slightly more than 2 weeks. Pennsylvania, a 5-2 Democrat-controlled Democrat-controlled state Supreme Court with a 6-1 decision struck down a Philadelphia-led challenge to overturn state preemption of gun laws, which was momentous.
Mm-hmm.
Voter referendums. Colorado passed a 6.5% tax on firearms and ammunition. Florida passed a stupid right to hunt and fish for the state constitution. Memphis, Tennessee approved 3 anti-gun measures. That was during the special session. Presidential election brought Harris's record on gun control to the forefront. To simplify it, she supported bans on firearms even within the home, mass confiscation, intrusive warrantless checks of firearm ownership, eliminating the right on an individual basis, an assault weapon ban without lawmaking. So basically had talked about reasoning the machine gun definition to include all semi-automatic firearms, which is fascinating. Mandatory buybacks, universal background checks, as well as red flag laws. Cool dog. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals reissued its Antoniuk ruling following the GVR from the Supreme Court after Rahimi, reaffirming its prior conclusions regarding a major challenge to New York's concealed carry law. It held up most of the sensitive place restrictions, striking down only the vampire rule and the need to provide social media information for carry permits. Very well done, Second Circuit. You did a big law. Michigan and Hawaii established firearms snitch tip lines. Great. Sri Lanka required most civilian-owned firearms and ammunition to be temporarily turned in for review by November 7th. These have yet to be returned to their owners. Massachusetts passed a massive omnibus gun control bill, aka Lawful Firearm Owner Imprisonment Act, and it was signed by the governor. Enough petitions were collected to qualify to put the law on hold, but the governor then signed an emergency provision to put it into effect immediately. Right after that, she put out executive orders putting enforcement of many of its provisions on hold, which is definitely, I remember talking about that. That's like a normal way to behave, right? Yes. It's like a normal way to recognize the consent of the governed. A few high-profile school Las Vegases occurred in Iowa, Wisconsin, and Georgia, where the shooters were under 18, and in two of them employed handguns. The Biden administration and several lawmakers immediately responded with calls to ban assault weapons, enact universal background checks, and have federal red flag laws, where it was obvious in all three instances that would not have a preventative impact on the shootings. The Undetectable Firearms Act, which was passed, mind you, after a bunch of lawmakers saw a movie that made them believe that ceramic guns would be a massive thing, and that were then confused as to thinking Glocks were that, has been renewed for 7 more years. California had a Freedom Week of sorts from its ammo background check, and this allowed buyers to briefly get ammunition shipped directly to their homes, which was a nice little time. Louisiana and South Carolina joined 27 other states with constitutional permitless carry. Washington, D.C. agreed to pay $5.1 million to resolve a class action lawsuit claiming that it unconstitutionally arrested people for carrying guns outside of their homes, which was a big thing in D.C. They have jump squads where people look around and they are trained to look for signs of people carrying, in which case they literally, it's like stop and frisk, but more aggressive, where literally a team of cops jump out of a car and just start patting at you. So that's pretty cool. Virginia Governor Youngkin vetoed an assault weapons ban, mag cap limits, and 5-day waiting periods. He vetoed safe storage requirements and a ban on college campus carry, but signed laws banning trigger switches that can make firearms fire automatically, and a second law that allows criminal charges against parents who allow children deemed threats to have access to weapons. New Mexico Governor Grisham signed 2 bills, one enacting a 7-day waiting period for all gun buyers and the other creating a 100-foot and 50-foot gun-free zone around polling locations and drop boxes. Both bills have exemptions for concealed handgun license holders. Israel ended its reliance on the U.S. for several small arms for the IDF, to include rifles closely based on the M4s and M16s and pistols based on the AR-15. And by initiating long-term contracts with local arms producers. So now somebody aside from us will be buying their garbage. Israel issued 100,000 gun licenses since October 7th. Little Rock Airport Director Brian Malinowski died in a raid by the ATF in a search warrant regarding him selling firearms. The BioFire Smart Gun allegedly shipped its first units to market. I don't believe you. I do not believe you. I do not believe that actually happened. SCOTUS ruled, and by the way, I paid for that deposit. All right. SCOTUS ruled 6-3 in the Garland v. Cargill case. The ATF is wrong and bump stocks cannot be considered machine guns of the NFA. SCOTUS ruled 8-1 in US v. Rahimi that a federal statute prohibiting individuals subject to domestic violence restraining orders from possessing a firearm is lawful. That's not exactly what it was. It was this case. Basically, his facts were such that he had agreed that he was dangerous. And the court, in so many words, said that if you are dangerous, you can be temporarily deprived. So that doesn't dispose of the 922 G1 cases. ATF lost in federal district court in a case where it classified force reset triggers as machine guns, and the ruling applied nationwide. ATF was required to return all FRTs within 30 days and mail out remedial notices correcting their prior mailing campaign. Did we ever see that yet?
We'd listened to oral arguments on that at the appeals level, if you remember.
We see the letters.
The ATF was given an extension till sometime in January to do that. And at oral arguments, they were complaining, and it seemed that the judges were absolutely not having the ATF's interpretation of, but it's not like a bump stock because it pulls the machine gun like a trigger. And the judges were like straight up not hearing that. They were in the ATF's face and consistently asking the questions where it's like, but you have to pull the trigger each time, don't you? And the ATF like, well, yeah, but like there's no the answer is yes, we're moving on.
Right.
But they did seem to lend an ear to the ATF. The ATF's argument is that NAGR's the group involved in this, but the injunction saying that, well, this protects all of NAGR's members, and NAGR's not being sort of like what the courts consider a regular membership thing, regular membership group where they're not telling you who's actually a member for privacy reasons or whatever. Doesn't that actually mean that it's just a nationwide injunction? And the answer is yes. Then also that should be the writing on the wall in the first place, because you shouldn't have to just be like, I gave this group $20 and now my rights exist again, or what have you. So
you also shouldn't have to give a group $20 for your rights to exist. Right.
The judges were at least listening to the ATF whenever they argued that. How this opinion comes down, I guess we'll see. But I think I at least remember the ATF asking the appeals court to stay their requirement to send out the letters to say we're sorry. And it was weird because like the ATF was saying like, well, we can't be required to give people their stuff back because we don't know if we have it. It's like, well, that's a you problem. I don't like if that's the injunctive relief ordered. That's you have paddled your way up this poop creek and then got rid of your paddle. Now you're stuck there. They were complaining about the fact that they don't know who to send the notices to because they'd sent out notices before to a list of people, and now they don't know who that was. And it's one of these. Like, is this real? Is this a real argument you're making? You sent out a list, now you don't know who you sent it to? Really? Yeah. Really? Like, you scheduled visits? Like, you came and knocked and talked to a bunch of different people? You're telling me you didn't keep track of any of that? That's alarming.
So stupid. Next up, Washington got several new gun control laws. Most notable were a gun dealer killer requiring dealers to have 24-hour video surveillance and other significant measures, and to do background checks on employees. A 24-hour requirement for gun owners to report lost or stolen firearms. Bans on carrying firearms in public libraries, zoos, aquariums, and transit facilities unless they have concealed carry permits. And law enforcement officers must destroy most guns obtained in buybacks. Maine got several gun control bills to include a 72-hour waiting period, a ban on bump stocks and triggers or devices that materially increase the rate of fire or approximates the operation or rate of fire of a machine gun.
What the fuck does that mean?
Universal background checks on private gun sales that were advertised online or in print, and expanded yellow flag law to allow police to take a potentially dangerous person into protective custody, even if they have not committed a crime.
Sorry, we suspended habeas corpus.
Yeah, that's like, Jesus Christ. That's nightmarish.
An actual police state habeas corpus is gone. That doesn't have to actually be a crime. This is for your safety.
You're dangerous.
You said bad things about Lincoln in the newspapers.
Alternative for Deutschland.
You said that Lincoln's war was aggressive? Yeah. I think you're a danger to yourself or others. Why don't you come with us?
Hawaii legalized the open carry of all non-firearm weapons, including butterfly knives, switchblades, brass knuckles, swords, and spears. And Hawaii's Supreme Court, in complete defiance of the Bruin opinion, ruled that the state constitution does not protect an individual's right to carry a firearm in public, citing the spirit of aloha and The Wire, the TV series.
Yes.
The Wire. Brilliant. Brilliant. But yeah, thank you again, Clearly Insane 1, for doing that, as you do every year. And thank you all so much for watching. Support us on Patreon, do the thing. And guys, if you've watched all this and you're not subscribed, it's kind of shitty. You should subscribe. Okay?
Yeah, stop being a shitter.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's all we have for you tonight. Maybe we'll see you next week.
Maybe we won't. Depends on if you subscribe and say nice things in the comments. Who knows?
Yeah, describe to us. Yeah. But as always, guys, we will see you next time.
This podcast has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. For more, visit firearmsradio.net.